Hi, this is Arun from arunsyoga.in. I'm a software engineer who mostly work with Node.js, PHP, and other backend technologies. And I'm an open source contributor as well. I'm a tantric by birth in a family which is passing tantric wisdom from generations to generations, from past 2000 years of legacy, and got lucky to travel across India and got chances to study under various gurus from different backgrounds and disciplines. You could connect with me in arunsyoga.in. Here I'm helping you to design a divine lifestyle which is based on Vedic astrology, tantra, and other yogic system of understanding. Hi, this is the third episode of the Astrology of East and West series. This episode, we are digging deep into the fundamental differences and similarities between the astrology of East and West, which includes shape of chart, size of the houses, meaning of each houses and planets, and the differences of the positions of the planets in each system. However, to show it much more deeply, we have decided to analyze Donald Trump's chart soon. So stay tuned for that, and let's begin our podcast series Astrology of East and West, episode number 3, the fundamental differences and similarities. So hi all. I think you could have gone through our previous podcast on Vedic reading series and the astrology of the West, and we are trying to see where these two particular signs is developed on two nodes of our planet. Like one end there is Vedic reading, and another end there is a Western reading. And at this particular podcast, and we are trying to see whether these two are gonna meet any point, or is it something which we could actually adopt to our own daily life in order to improve our life or whatsoever. So the exciting thing about this particular podcast is that we are gonna look at on the Donald Trump's chart using both sciences, and try to see what the birth secret of Donald Trump, which is being written with the existential sciences of esotericism. So yeah, let's begin. Sheila, let's see what is this both things are actually about. Like for instance, there is 12 houses in Vedic astrology. So each house stands for one particular thing. Could you explain like what is this houses? Each houses stands for in Western astrology a bit.
Okay, in Western astrology, the first house stands for personal details about the individual who's having the horoscope done.
Hello.
And values. So what are their ethics and how do they use money? The third house is communication, how they communicate, but it's also about short visits around their local area, and it's also about brothers and sisters, and it's also about learning, but it's usually short learning, not long learning. Number 4 is about home. So usually the astrologer can say a little bit about the home of the person. So I'll give you an example. Somebody has the 4th house in Pisces, for example, and they have Neptune in the 4th house. The planet Neptune is associated or ruled by Pisces. So it means that you have a double whammy of Pisces in the 4th house, and the 4th house is home. So quite often people who have Neptune in the 4th house dream about living in a completely different place. They quite often want to go to Australia, which is far away from here, or they want to go to India to live, or somewhere like that. They dream of doing that, and sometimes they have a second home in that place, but they quite often end up living in a completely different continent to the one that they were born in. So as an astrologer, I can say to somebody, oh, have you thought about living abroad, but a long, long way away in another continent? 100% of the time they'll say yes. So that's a little bit more information. Then we come to the 5th house. The 5th house is children and love affairs, how they approach their personal life in terms of love rather than marriage. Distinct difference, but also it's about creativity. So if somebody has a lot of planets in the 5th house, then you can be sure that they're a very creative person. And then depending on which the planets are, then you can give a bit more detail about their creativity. Number 6 is health and work. So the way that one works, for example, because I'm trying to give you 30 years of information in 10 minutes. The 6th house is, for example, if you had a transit, that means where the planets are today, rather than the natal time of birth where the planets were. So there's 2 things the astrologer in Western astrology does, is we look at where the planets were when the person was born, and then we look at where the planets are now in relation to their chart. So for example, if somebody has Saturn going through their 6th house, number 6 being health and work, they might be having some minor health problems. It doesn't mean to say they're going to die, but it means that they probably are concerned with their health and they're having to have tests and things like that. But also they're probably working very hard as well, because Saturn is all about ruling and responsibility and rules and living by the rules. And strangely enough, also with the 6th house, especially if Saturn is there, you have problems with your teeth. So that's number 6. Number 7 is the house of marriage and relationships generally. So an example with that one would be somebody has, let me see, the 7th house could be in Capricorn, but also Venus could be placed in Capricorn in a very middle part of the 7th house. So Venus shows that that person is probably quite lucky in love because of the position of Venus, but at the same time, because it's in Capricorn, it would mean that the person expects certain rules and certain rigid ideas about relationships, and that they take relationships seriously because it's in Capricorn. So when the astrologer looks at the houses, they look at the house and the meaning of it, but they also look at what planets are in there, and they also think about the sign that it's in. So number 8 is about deep mysteries. It's often, we call it the house of psychology, because sometimes if people have a few planets in the 8th house, they've had some psychological issues. It doesn't mean to say that they have mental health problems, but it often means that they have struggled on some level, and it's affected their emotions and their mental states. You can also see in the 8th house things like if the parents represented by the sun and moon appear in the 8th house, then quite often you have absent parents. So it could be a father who died when they were young, if the sun is in the 8th house, but it could also be a father who left when they were young, or it could be a father who is present physically in the room, and yet he's always reading the newspaper and he never speaks to anyone. And also people who have fathers in the military often have the sun in the 8th house, because obviously if your father is in the army or the Air Force, he'll be gone away quite a lot of the time. So all of those things apply. The eighth house is always about the deep things, you know, the things that affect us and hurt us. The ninth house is one of my favorites because it's opposite the third house. And the third house was all about communication and travel, but local travel and small, short courses of learning. The ninth house is about long-term learning and like doing a degree, doing further education, stuff like that. And also it's about travel, but it's usually long distance travel. So, for example, the planet that matches the ninth house is Jupiter. So if somebody has Jupiter in the house it lives in, that's a good thing, because you can immediately say as an astrologer, oh, so do you like traveling abroad a lot? And also you've done a lot of long-term study and you love it, you enjoy it. So if you're not traveling in your body to another country, another continent, you are definitely traveling in your mind all the time. So that's number 9. Number 10 is it's like a midpoint of the horoscope. So it means career, how you present yourself to the world, how people see you, and their perception of you. And it's also about your, I'm trying to think of the word, your status in the world. Something that we might look for is if there's a transit, if the planets are currently at this moment moving through the 10th house, if they're moving in a middle point, quite often the person's life collapses. They just, their old life is disappearing and the new life is coming in. And quite often their parents pass away, they might become a grandparent. So when it happened to me, let me see, I had 2 big operations, you know, important ones where I could have died, but I didn't. I also became a grandmother 4 times in 4 years. My mother died and I moved to a different house. And from in a different place, and I also learnt how to sail a boat, which was a completely different thing from anything else I'd ever done. So that's what happens when these big changes take place in people's lives in the 10th house particularly. So that's number 10. Number 11 is about friendships and groups. So if somebody has a lot of planets in there, you can safely say that they love being with other people, they love joining things, and they're very involved with other people. And also, if we come back to Saturn again, because it's so difficult to talk about the combination of all of this because it would take hours, but an example would be Saturn, which represents order, rules, discipline, towing the line, obeying what you need to do, and hard work and dedication. If you have that in the 11th house, then you're quite often the leader of your friends, and you're quite often somebody at school who gets to be the monitor or the prefect or whatever you call it in India. I don't know what you call it, but you know, the child who leads the other children. So that's that one. And number 12 is, that's an interesting one because it's similar to the 8th house. The 8th house is deep, hidden psychological stuff. And number 12 is the hidden self. So it's about the unconscious mind. And it's about, it's a bit solitary. It's about going within rather than looking outwards. So it's very different to number 11. Number 11 is all about people you meet, connections you make. Number 12 is all about the connection you make with yourself in a solitary way. So that's the 12. I don't know if you want me to tell you anything more. Has that given you a rough idea?
No. Let me tell you what is this in Vedic astrology, like
Yeah. Oh,
all the
yes.
12.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
So it's like first house is like it's a Sanskrit word. What we say it's like Tanu. Tanu is like self. You know, the body and whatever you are. That is the first house which is talking about, and the second house which is Dhana. Dhana means your wealth. I mean
Your
materialist wealth.
Oh, the same thing. They're both the same. Yeah, exactly.
Um, then the third house, which is Sahaja, like the qualities you have, like for instance, you are good in at something like. By birth people will get some certain qualities by birth. We
Yes.
could analyze some people, so that is basically the Sahaja Bhava talks. Also it talks about the siblings like your brother or something like that. The
That's
third
exactly the
house.
same. Yeah.
And the
Isn't that
fourth.
interesting? Hang on a minute. I just have to put my heater on because it's
Okay.
cold here. I think it's 0 degrees today. It's been snowing. Okay.
Where were we? We were in which house? Fourth house, right?
We did number 3. We're on number 4, I think.
Yeah. So the number fourth house is talks about the Sanskrit word which stands for the fourth house is Bandhu. Bandhu means your relatives, and
It
mostly it
means
will relatives,
our relations. Yeah.
relatives like your relatives, your father, mother, and like
Yeah.
relatives,
Yes.
the people,
Relatives.
yeah, relatives.
Actually, I left that bit out because I said it's the home where you live, but it
Mhm.
also represents your father or your mother.
Your
In
family
it,
basically, yeah,
yes.
family, not just father and mother, like distant relatives also include, like family
Oh,
tree.
okay.
So it's like home, yeah, exactly, but not the physical home, like the place you are into. Then
Okay.
the fifth house, which speaks about kids, Putra. The Sanskrit term which stands for there is Putra, the kids, offsprings.
Yes. So the
That is.
same again.
Then the sixth house, which is enemy. It's
Ah,
Sanskrit word which stands there is Ari, which is enemy. It probably a physical person or your qualities which works against you. If you have some certain qualities also, like it could be work against you. uh, for example, the Cleopatra, she was so beautiful and amazing. Because of that reason she was able to, she tried to conquer the world, and because of the beauty she got killed also. So there is
we would
there is
say she's our own worst enemy.
so it is like qualities also the things from outside also. So if we are aware of the qualities which could work against us, then we can actually do something about that, you know uh,
Hmm.
that is the sixth house. Then the seventh house which
Emma, can I
stands.
just tell you, it's interesting because you're saying number 6. I would say number 12, which is opposite number 6. I
Huh.
would say hidden enemies in number 12. So there's a lot of similarities. Yeah.
And the seventh house which stands for relationship, yeah, like
Yeah. Oh,
your
same thing.
relation, yeah. Seventh house is
Yeah.
always. And the eighth house which is Rendra. Rendra means the whole on you, like Even if you have a lot of wealth also, like a pot is filled with the water. If it has a hole in it, the entire water will go out from the particular pot. So the eighth house, which is actually talks about the holes on your being. What is that? Taking out your um, quality. That is what eighth house represents. And the ninth house, yeah, as you have said, is like it's karma house, like how peoples identify people. They don't identify them with what the other is thinking about himself. The other person will make an identification about you uh, by looking at on what you are giving out. Like
Right.
if you give a lot of charity work, people will identify you as a philanthropist, because you are charity, you are doing a lot of charity, but may not be true also. Inside you may be something else. But the way which people can identify is that what you give out from you. That is how people can identify you. So this is the ninth house, which actually the 10th house, which actually stands for karma. So karma is the duty or the things which you perform for your being, your existence. So that is the 10th house. Then the 11th house, that is labha. Labha is like what you gain out of all these things. That is the 11th house, which stands for. It's Labha, the Sanskrit word. And the 12th house, which is for moksha, the ultimate liberation. That is how we see, like how the liberation
Hold on.
happens.
Sorry. Excuse me.
Yeah.
My phone was ringing. I closed it off.
That's
Can
okay.
you turn your volume up a little bit, because it's difficult to hear you?
Can you hear me now?
That's better. Yeah.
So basically the 12th house, which stands for the moksha. Moksha is the cause of liberation. So that is how we see the 12th house. It's liberation, the house of
Liberation. Well,
liberation. Yeah.
now you see, that's so interesting, because the first half, the first 6 houses, or even the first 7 houses, are almost exactly the same, and then it changes. It's slightly different. That's very interesting. Yeah.
So one thing is like
Sorry.
one thing, the all the houses in this particular system is 30-degree each. There is no difference,
That's
like 30
sorry.
degree each.
I can't hear you.
Each house is 30
Yeah,
degree each.
that's right. Same here.
Each house is 30 degree.
Yes.
Okay.
So I have 360 degrees in a circle. 12 times 30.
Yes. So I have seen some chart. There are houses less than that of 30, more than that of 30. What does
Yeah.
it mean? Like,
well, but it's a different system. It's the system that I use. It's called Placidus.
Okay.
And Placidus works really well for me, so I just use it. But some people use equal house, which is 30, 30, 30, 30, 30. So in my chart, in Western astrology, my 12th house and my 6th house are much, much bigger than all the other houses, because it's an unequal. So I'm just trying to think. Aquarius, it's probably about 48 degrees each of those houses. So it means that for what they represent, there's more time in my life spent on those areas. So I spend a lot of time alone because the 12th house is so big, the alone house, the solitary house, and the 6th house is work, and I've spent a lot of time working, and also it's health, and I've spent a lot of time in hospital. So I was in hospital when I was a baby, 5 months. I was really sick and they didn't know what was wrong with me. They just sent me home, said, oh, she's okay now. So it's all hospitals. So that's the answer. I hope that answered the question for you, that Placidus is a slightly different way of doing it. And Placidus works for me. I don't like equal house. It seems much more individual to me to do the Placidus method and have the unequal houses.
And one more thing, we start with the, in the Vedic astrology, wherever the ascendant, that will be the first house.
Yes.
How does it?
It's the same.
Same thing. Okay.
The same thing. Yeah.
All right.
And then we have another line. We have the ascendant and the descendant. And then we have a top line and a bottom line going through the middle this way, diagonal. And that's called the MC. And that means the point of your profession and your home. So we have the 2 lines going through.
Well, now...
Do you have a volume control on your computer? Because usually I can hear you really well. And today I'm having trouble hearing you.
What about now?
Little bit better.
Now it's fine.
That's better. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, fine, right? So now let's move to planets. Okay. So how many planets are there on the system which you are using?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We have 10 planets. We also have the North and South node. And we also have part of fortune and the ascendant and the midheaven. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 planets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 planets. Yeah, 10 planets, the ascendant, the midheaven. In addition, so that's 12 points, shall we say. And then the North node, 13, and the part of fortune, 14.
Okay.
Oh, and we look at Chiron sometimes, makes it 15, but I don't have such a big emphasis. Chiron, it's another planet. It's a lesser planet.
So what is this? What is the lesser planet? Lesser planets means what?
Chiron, Chiron.
Okay.
It's further away. But a lot of people, I went through a phase of about 2 years where I had an ephemeris of all the planetary positions for Chiron, just Chiron. And I used to talk about that with people and it worked. But usually I don't use it very much because it's too much for people. I give so much information that in the end I have to cut it down, you know. I'd be on the phone all day just doing one chart, you know.
So
if they want more, come back.
So basically we have 9 planet which in Eastern astrology there is 9 planets, and the North node and South node, which is actually taken as a planet in Eastern astrology, that is known as Rahu and Ketu, North node and South node.
Yes.
And all the planets revolve in a clockwise direction, and Rahu and Ketu revolve in an anti-clockwise direction.
All right.
And there are another two more planets that generally didn't taken in most of the people don't take that into consideration, because it will be so much of information which will actually take a lot of time to calculations and stuffs like that.
Yeah, it's
So
exactly
that
the same here.
that is called the Mandi and Guligan. So this is basically the planet that gives clues around the past birth. What was you in your past birth? What karma which bounds you in this particular birth? Things like that. This particular two planets is talks about. So totally it is like 11 planet. So let's have a look at on what is this each planet is saying. Can
Yeah,
you
shall I tell
can
you
you
what they are in Western astrology?
yeah,
Yeah, shall I tell you mine?
yeah. So just a
Okay,
quick
we start with
overview,
the
like
sun.
just very quick, like what is that? Keywords, like the very quick.
Yeah,
We don't
yeah,
need so much because
no,
we are going for the his chart also,
yeah.
trans
Okay,
chart also.
so
Yeah.
you've got the sun that
Hmm.
represents the father, the moon,
Okay.
which represents the mother and emotional matters, Mercury, which represents communication, Venus, the planet of love, Mars, the planet of action, Jupiter, planet of learning and expansion, Saturn, the planet of restriction and conforming, Uranus, the planet of the quirky, unusual, sudden, unexpected, Neptune, the spiritual and the esoteric and the drug fueled world, Pluto, the planet of transformation, North Node and South Node. I guess I think that's a soul's purpose, but very important if I'm comparing two charts in a relationship, because sometimes the North Node of one person is opposite the ascendant of the other person, or the South Node is opposite the ascendant, and that could be a very significant relationship. And Chiron is the wounded healer. So Chiron often shows where the person might be good at healing others or where their pain is associated. Oh, and part of fortune is another one, but I don't think it's a planet. Part of fortune is calculated by the distance between two other planets natally. So part of fortune is literally where your fortune lies. But it means well-being as well as wealth. It's not just money. You know, what's going to give you the feel-good factor, really. So, for example, my part of fortune is in Virgo. So I spend a lot of time clearing out cupboards. I really enjoy it. And then my friends say, I've never known anybody get rid of so many things, and yet I'm still got loads of things. But I'm always saying, oh, I don't need that, I don't need that, I don't need that. And also some people say if you have part of fortune in Virgo, then maybe you were a nurse or a doctor in a previous life, because Virgo is very much about medical things. So I hope that gives you a quick idea.
Yeah. So these planets are not there, like Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, Chiron, and those planets are not there. And also, the path of fortune concept is not there.
Right.
So the planets which it speaks about, let us go through. The sun. Sun is like self, the body, and the father also. It's also speak about
So
the
that's the
father.
same,
Yeah.
because it's
Then
also ego.
yeah,
Yeah,
ego, self, yes.
yeah,
And the moon, which moon is like feminine quality, feminine aspect, and it's divine feminine, like goddess is the nature, and the astrology comes from the nature. So moon has very much importance in Vedic astrology, and it also stands for mother. So that is the moon. And
That's exactly the same.
and I mean, the moon has very much importance in Vedic astrology, is because uh, divine feminine is the existence. In India, the tantrics, I mean, the esotericism of Hinduism or the esotericism of the Buddhism, like it's all tantras. So they understood it as feminine. So the moon has very much importance in the chart. And then the Mars. So Mars stands for the strength, physical strength, your body.
Oh,
How
sorry, the
health.
sound is going again.
Mars. Hello. Can you hear me?
Turn it up. I will put it to full volume, I think, because you keep
Hello.
disappearing. Okay, let's
Can you
see.
hear me? Is that from your end?
No. Have you got it on the top volume?
Can you try to increase your volume? Is it full?
Oh no, it's getting worse now.
So the planet Mars, which is actually about the strength, physical strength, how the body looks like and stuff like that, that has been actually speaking with the planet Mars. And the Mercury, the planet which speaks about, what you speak. Like we say, it's like a goddess of Saraswati is the goddess. She is associated with the wisdom and things like that. So if the Mercury is in properly positioned, which means that Saraswati is in your tongue, which means that you will speak the things which will actually please the other. So that will make your life much more easier, you know. So if we speak better for others, it's like it will actually make the life much more easier. Like, yeah. Then the Jupiter is the planet uh, that is actually wisdom, knowledge. You know, it's not just knowledge; it's about wisdom, how wise you are. Like the knowledge will be get processed as wisdom. So the Jupiter talk about the wisdom. Then the Venus, this is the very important planet because this will give it, this is mostly talks about love, pleasure, drugs and things like that, you know. Um, then Saturn. Saturn is the bad planet, generally considered as the bad planet, because it will make the life tough at that particular point of time. When the Saturn is strong, the life will be get tougher. Rahu, I mean the North Node, which is that particular planet.
Sorry, one moment. Sorry.
So basically, Saturn.
When you talk like that, I can hear you.
Okay.
So you're talking, you were like, oh, so this, and then I could hear. So keep talking like that, because otherwise I can't hear you.
Okay.
That's it.
So the Saturn is the planet which is actually it's associated with the hard work, and it's generally considered as a bad planet because whenever you are under the influence of the Saturn, usually people will go through a lot of troubles generally in their life. So this is what Saturn brings out. So people are generally afraid of.
We say it's the malefic planet,
Yeah.
but that to us in Western astrology, that's an old idea, a traditional idea, and then we've developed that idea into something a bit more positive.
Yeah, I also have a feel like because it will actually under the influence of Saturn, you will actually develop it by yourself.
Yeah,
You will actually
exactly.
get growth.
Exactly. But it's hard.
Yeah, it's
It's
hard.
not an easy, yeah, time. Yeah.
Then the Rahu is the planet which is mostly about the obsession.
About the
Obsession. You have obsessive like
Oh,
north
right.
node.
That's
It's north
interesting.
node. North node. The position of the north node will tell you how obsessive you are about something. You
How
know
what?
how
How
obsessive,
what?
obsessive,
Obstinate.
obsessive,
I don't know what that word is.
obsession.
Oh yeah, obstinate. We say obstinate.
What that mean? I mean
It means you have
obsession.
Oh no, sorry. Obsession.
Yeah,
Yeah, it means I'm obsessed.
yeah,
Obsessed.
yeah. It's north
So
node
yeah,
depend me.
so that's interesting because I have the North Node in Pisces, so I must be obsessed with God. Well, I am actually.
No, I mean
Oh,
the
dear.
chart differ. I mean the in a Vedic chart, the position of the Rahu may not be on the Pisces. It will be it will be like one uh, maybe there is because there is 23-degree differences there the planetary position that we could see in other chart. Actually, then the Ketu is the south node, which
Oh, speak up again. Sorry.
Ketu south node.
Yeah.
So
Oh yes.
this is about dissatisfaction.
Oh, okay.
How much dissatisfied you are is been revealed by the Ketu. So these are all about the planets and houses. Apart from that, there are some 4 or 5 concepts like deshas, planetary transition of the planets are there in Western astrology as well, right? Planetary transit. Then we have a concept called Desha, Navamsham, then Bhavam chart, Ashtavargam. On the top of that, remedies also been given. Certain mantras is been given, certain rituals is been given, all those things. So yeah. So now let's go for the Trump's planet. I mean
Yeah,
Trump's chart.
okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to stop and then start again for Trump? So you have two different recordings. No?
Yeah. Yeah. It's fine. Yeah.
Let's stop and then start again.
Yeah. Thank you for listening to my podcast. You could connect with me in arunsyoga.in where you could see my contact details, including my phone number, my WhatsApp, and email ID. Stay tuned for more exciting episodes.